In a synthesis, you bring things together. This combination, integration, or merging creates something new, your synthesis. The action of synthesis is basic to our world, from molecules to personal decisions. Take, for example, what happens when a single oxygen molecule is combined with two hydrogen molecules. Water is created, or synthesized. Hard to get more basic than that. You also use synthesis when you make personal decisions. For example, if two instructors are teaching a class you must take, you may synthesize your past experiences with the teachers to choose the one best for you. In school, when writing a synthesis from your research, your sources may come from the school's library, a textbook, or internet. Here are some important points to keep in mind. First, regardless of where your sources came from or how many you have, what you write should be driven by a thesis that you devise. You must form a personal point of view, a slant that will connect information from your sources. A quick example. Let's say you've read 3 folk tales: Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Little Red Riding Hood, and the Pied Piper. Now you must write a synthesis of them. As you study your 3 sources, you think about links between them and come up with this idea. Folk tales use fear to teach children lessons. You then use this thesis to synthesize your 3 sources as you support your point of view. Your support points could focus on the lessons for children. Lesson 1, never talk to strangers. Lesson 2, don't wander from home. Lesson 3, appearances can deceive us. This step of outlining your thesis and main points is a crucial one when writing a synthesis. If your goal is to provide readers a unified perspective on your sources, that unified perspective must be clear to you before the writing begins. Once the writing begins, your point of view is then carried through on the paragraph and sentence levels. Let's examine some techniques for achieving the unity that a good synthesis requires. First, here's an example of an unsuccessful attempt. Many sources agree that capital punishment is not a crime deterrent. Now here's the idea or topic sentence around which the sources should be unified. According to Judy Pennington in an interview with Helen Prejean, crime rates in New Orleans rise for at least 8 weeks following executions. Citation page 110. Jimmy Dunn notes that crime rates often go up in the first 2 or 3 months following an execution. Death in the Americas argues that America's crime rate as a whole has increased drastically since the reinstatement of the death penalty in the 1960s. Helen Prejean cites Ellis in her book to note that in 1980, 500,000 people were behind bars, and in 1990 that figure rose to 1.1 million. Citation page 112. This paragraph certainly uses a number of sources. However, they are presented in a random, grocery list fashion. Besides the main point at the beginning, there's no further attempt to synthesize them. The sources seem tossed in, like ingredients in a salad. Let's examine a possible revision of that paragraph. Major studies suggest that capital punishment fails to deter crime. In Dead Men Walking, Helen Prejean presents statistics indicating that capital punishment does little to lower crime. Note that the key idea from our topic sentence, capital punishment fails to deter crime, is echoed in the sentence about the source, capital punishment does little to lower crime. This repetition ties the source to the overall idea being developed. Based on this evidence, Prejean concludes, executions do not deter crime. The U.S. murder rate is no higher in states that do not have the death penalty than those who do. Citation page 110. Note how the phrase, based on this evidence, provides a connection by forcing the reader to think back to the evidence of statistics in the previous sentence. Prejean's point is reiterated from a historical perspective in Dunn's article, Death in the Americas. Now this sentence exists for one reason only, to provide a thought bridge between 2 sources. referring back to Prejean and forward to Donne. Donne first points out that, despite the social and economic upheavals from 1930 to 1960, crime rates were unchanged, citation page 2. Our linking phrase here is, Donne first points out. However, Donne notes, after the reinstatement of the death penalty in the 1960s, crime rates soared, citation page 2. The phrase, however Donne notes, provides a final link between the last two sentences. The result is a matrix of connective devices that unifies the sources around a key idea stated at the beginning. Although this matrix seems complex, it is actually built on a simple three-point strategy. First, stay in charge. You, the writer, must control the sources, using them to serve your purpose. In good synthesis writing, sources are used to support what you, the writer, have already said in your own words. Second, stay focused. Your main point is not merely stated once and left to wilt. Your main idea is repeated and echoed throughout as a way to link the sources, to weave them together into a fabric of meaning. Third, stay strategic. Notice the source sandwich strategy at work. First, the author sets up the source with its background and relevance to the point. And after the source comes a follow-up in his or her own words as a way to bridge or link to the next part. In other words, your own words are used like two slices of bread with the source in the middle. Follow these simple principles when using sources in your writing, and you will achieve the most important goal of synthesis writing, to create a whole greater than its parts.